Welcome back to the IU427 garage, everyone. Back in the shop, and we are working on Michael's car. We are working to get all of the Brightwork, all of the lights, the bumpers, the roll bars, the windshield, all that kind of stuff reinstalled on Michael's car so that we can get this thing delivered to him and he can start driving it. Alright, I've told y'all in the past that sometimes you just need to walk away from the car, and we've done that a couple of times on this particular project we're working on for Michael. But sometimes the way to get around those small difficulties is look for the little wins. Those things that you can bolt on the car quickly that make a tremendous difference in the way the car looks. So at this point, you don't want to rush. If you start rushing around a freshly painted body, you're probably going to hurt the finish of the car. And so this isn't the time to start trying to gain time, trying to push to get your car finished or across the finish line. Because one small lack of attention and you're going to do something that you're going to regret. And that first scratch is going to always be the worst. But I prefer for that first scratch to be put in by the car owner and not here in our shop. So one of the first things that I did on the car when we got it back to the shop, we actually got this back 2 days ago. So I didn't film it all last night. I did work on the car, but the first evening that we had the car back, I got the car on the lift, and I wanted to win. We had been at Miller's all day, and we were there pretty late. I think by the time we left Miller's, it was just after 5 o'clock, and we had started before 9 in the morning, so that was a pretty long day. So what I did when I got back to the shop is I looked for something that I could get a win out of. So in the back of the car, Miller always installs the handle. So the handle was already on. But what I really wanted to do is I wanted to get that on there. I wanted to get this on here. Because that in itself, to me, is a victory. So that entailed a couple of things. Since this is a Mark III versus a Mark IV, these two pieces are separate. And notice, this all fits in between the light for the license plate and the handle on the bottom with no modification whatsoever. But since it's a Mark III, it has a perky butt. So you can see that this part of the trunk right up in here comes to a point at the light. So a little different than a Mark IV, which is much more rounded in this area here. So what we did is we went ahead and we installed the light for the license plate first. All the holes we had previously, because of course this was a repaint. So we used those holes as our guide, cleaned them out, got all the paint out of them, went ahead, put the light in. The next thing we did, and we can probably see it underneath here, if I pull this back, the bracket under there is a separate piece. Mounts with two rivets, one here. And same thing, we had holes there. They were a little bit off center, so what we actually did is we actually made this hole on this side just a little bit ovaled so we could get the license plate straight on the back of the car, and we got that installed. And that's all I did that first night that the car was back in the shop. Last night what I worked on was getting the tail lights installed. And if you remember from one of the earliest videos on Michael's car, we chose to put these LED, I think they're a 40s Chevy, maybe Chevy sedan style light, but they look a lot like the Lucas type single lights that go on, that went on quite a few of the early Cobras. So the nice thing about these is that they fit the actual light pad, that's the portion right here that the lights mount to, a lot better than the Lucas lights, and so there would have had to be a lot of body work back here in order to get those lights to fit real well. So we've got those installed, and I do have them already tied in, and they're all wired up. So let me go ahead and turn the lights on, and you can see that we have tail lights, license plate lights, and then if I go ahead and hit the flashers, those should work as well. So we've got flashers in the back. So another win last night. I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time out here after work yesterday. I managed to be out here, I think maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours last night. But again, little things like that can begin to give you the motivations to keep going forward. So I think tonight, what we're going to work on, it's a little, what is it, it's like 5:20 p.m. So got home from work a little late today. But what I think I'm going to do today is I've got all of the headlights in the box right here. We have new tri-bar style halogen headlights that we're going to mount on Michael's car to replace the old seal beams. And then we are going to clean up the existing turn signal and marker lights. I already have them wired. That's why I needed those plugged in so that rear tail lights would work and the rear flashers would work anyway. So we're going to get those installed. We'll get the headlight buckets installed, and then hopefully we'll get the lights installed tonight before I need to go in for supper. So, all right, little music update. Saliva, your disease. All right, so lights in the front of the car are done. We've got, we used the original headlight buckets that we pulled off of Michael's car in the beginning. The trim rings aren't perfect, but you know, the chrome still looks good, and so we cleaned them up, we put them back on. New hardware, a lot of the clips were broken, and someone had replaced some of them, but not done a real good job, so I put some brand new clips on. I had to replace both lenses for the front marker turn signal lights. The wings on one wing on both of them, on each of them, was broke, and by the time I would have cleaned them up, and it was just easier to go upstairs, grab two good used ones, and put those on here. So we'll add that to the list for Michael. And then I think what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to order some of the little grommets that fit in here. I've got a manufacturer that makes these back east. So each side. Remember, on the Mk3s, the quick jack shafts do not hold the front of the body up. These bolts that go in here from the side are actually what secure the body in place. So the quick jacks are merely for show here. So I'm going to get those bumpers ordered up, or I'm going to have Michael order those up. We don't need to get to the quick jacks right away. So we'll get those ordered up, and hopefully we'll have those in a short amount of time. But the headlights turned out good. I already tested them. They work. We know the turn signals and the marker lights work because we had those hooked up but not installed. And I think what's next is roll bars. And so I'll show you that tomorrow night. I'm going to go in for supper right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to put the grommets, we're going to slide the grommets up onto the roll bars before we place them in. And we're going to use a little bit of axle grease inside each of the roll bars so that they, one, install easier, they slide right down. Two, they don't rust as they would if we put them in dry. And three, if they ever need to have to come off of there, they'll come off a lot easier. If you guys remember, we ended up using the shop crane to pull those roll bars off because they were on there so they were just stuck. Now, Michael did have different roll bars before. He had the 2-inch roll bars, but they were powder coated black and installed dry, and so they were just impossible to get off. We nearly lifted the car off the ground with a shop crane trying to get those roll bars off, but we did prevail. So as these go back on, we're going to make sure that we get the inside of the roll bars lubricated so that if they ever need to come off in the future, because it'll probably be this guy that has to take them off, it'll be a lot easier to get them off. So I will catch up with you guys tomorrow night. I'll see you then. Another music update for you. Slipknot. Duality. Roll bars are going in. We got them in place. They were a little bit of a booger. Remember, we pre-fit these, but the body wasn't on. So, you know, you're dealing with, you know, more friction points as these are going down. So you've got, you know, this, which could add friction over on that side. You've got the rear bar, and then trying to make it all meet up is just, can be a nightmare. But we got them in. We've got the fronts bolted, so you can see the bolt. Let's see. Down there. And that's all tight. We've got the bolts inside the wheel wells. They're all done. You can see I've got the trim rings on. Don't forget those. Those have to go on before you put the roll bar in place. So we've just got them resting here. They'll just go down into place, and we'll screw those in. Probably won't do that tonight. I just want to finish getting all these in place. Remember, these have the boltless mount at the top, and if you want to pick some of those up, my buddy Greg over at 520 Speedworks sells those. He's also got a YouTube channel, so you can go check him out. Over here, this one's all bolted in. Same thing with the cockpit on this side. Don't know if you can see it in there behind the seatbelt, but it's all in. And I'm probably going to spend the rest of tonight. Oh, that's dark. Probably going to spend the rest of tonight before dinner getting everything kind of in place. I may work on the trim rings. The bolt holes, of course, in the trunk, we didn't drill those. And so I'm going to probably drill those and get those bolts put in tonight. And then I may work on the trim rings tomorrow. But regardless, I've got a backpack blower. The neighbor's gardener's out there, so I'm not going to talk for too long here. So I will catch up with you probably tomorrow. All right, next day. I think what I'm going to tackle tonight is working on the roll bar trims. That way I can put the roll bars kind of behind me, and then well, I've got the rear wheels and tires off. I can work on getting the gas filler neck in and the Le Mans cap and some other stuff, but I don't think that's going to happen in this video. I think I'm going to get the roll bar trims in, and then that's going to wrap it up for this this video. So let me turn the camera around. I'll show you what I'm going to do. Some of the holes are still here, meaning when Miller did the body work, the holes are still visible. So I'm hoping some of these will line up with the new roll bar trims. No guarantees. I don't know that the roll bar trims that were here before were from Mike Everson. I know these are. But they look like they're going to be pretty close. So I'm going to see if I can just clean out those holes and then run the new screws in. One of the things that I really like about Mike's roll bar trims and his seatbelt bezels is they go in with sheet metal screws. They're just, you know, they look like wood screws. People like to call them wood screws, but they just have a point on the end of them, so it's not like you have to you know, use a machine screw and a nut on the end, because in a lot of cases it's just impossible to get to these. So think about this: you're running some machine screws down through these roll bar trims, and you've got to reach all the way in to the trunk through the open trunk lid, and then you've got to line some of these up on the, you know, what's then the back side of the roll bar to get the thread started on this stuff. So it's just, Mikes are just so much easier, but you do need to make sure you drill the right holes, the right size holes, because if you drill the holes too small, you will distort the fiberglass, and when it tears, the fiberglass will kind of tear as you're running the screws in. It actually pulls that material up, and then it's going to make the roll bar trim sit proud of the surface. They're not going to sit down flush with it. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you drill the holes big enough for the screws, but not so big that the screws just strip out. It's a real fine line. So you may have to experiment and just drill a hole, and then if it's not quite big enough, drill the next size up until you get to the right size that the screws will thread in and get tight without stripping out, and not so tight that they tear the material and push the roll bar trim up. So I'm gonna get working on those, and I'll bring you guys back when I've got some of them in place. All right, music update. Rob Zombie, Living Dead Girl. Roll bar trims are in. We've got both sides in and mounted. The mounting holes that were there for the previous roll bar trims were, God, I don't know how the trims ever went in. And then I did find they must have been from someone else, probably from Finish Line or one of those, because they did have the through bolts and the nuts, the nylon lock nuts, and one of them was actually still stuck to the bottom side of the body, and I had to knock it out of the way. So trim rings are all in. I cleaned up the roll bars. They're looking nice and shiny. And then, since that went so well, I decided that I would see about mounting the fuel filler. So I've got the fuel filler mounted, and for the Mk3, you use a Mustang fuel filler neck that you cut into two pieces. Here we bought a new one, and we beaded the ends where we cut it so that we could get the 2-inch hose to sit nice and securely and not leak. So that's in. I went ahead, since Michael had the Le Mans cap powder coated, it became a little bit difficult to get it threaded and positioned properly. So what I ended up doing, I don't know if you can see it in there, I drilled and tapped for a set screw, and then I threaded this on, because this is two pieces. This piece and then the base are two different pieces, and they thread together, you know. But with all of the powder coater, in this case it was ceramic coating because it matches the side pipes and some of the other stuff that we did for the engine, it was so built up with that material that it wouldn't thread on more than a turn or two. I didn't want to get out a wire wheel and try to go after it that way, because I was afraid that I would scratch this portion of right here. I was afraid I'd scratch that portion of the base, and I thought, well, that's the part you're going to see, so I'm just not going to do that. So what I did is I kept threading it on and off, a little more, until I got it to where it's almost all the way threaded on. I got it just so that the gasket in here is touching. Gasket isn't tight, you can see it moves, but it's at least taking up the gap in there. And then when I got it positioned where I wanted it, I went ahead and I tightened the set screw down, and if I didn't tell anybody it was there, they'd probably never notice it. So we're going to leave that like that. It turned out really nice. And then what I did down here, I'm going to grab a light, is, remember, we replaced all this stuff down here. So that's a brand new filler neck from, what is it, an 87 through 93 Ford Mustang. You can use the laters as well. I think when you get into the 2000s, though, the neck size really gets reduced, and it just becomes a nightmare to fill these things. So we gutted the inside of it so that it would take fuel quickly, and then I beaded the ends where we cut it apart. And this hose that we have here is actually from, I want to say it's from like a 90s Chevy S10. It was dirt cheap. I think I paid $12 for this 2-inch hose, and it was about 2 feet long. I've only got about 6 inches of it left, so we used, you know, probably about 18 inches of it to get it in there, and it works perfectly. The angles on it and the way it lines up with the two ends of the fuel filler neck were just like perfect. So if I ever have to do this again, I'll just use that S10 hose because it's readily available and it was cheap and it fit just perfectly. So I think that is going to wrap it up for this video. I've got a lot more to go. But I'm trying to concentrate and get as much stuff done in the back of the car as I can. I'm going to show you real quick the interior of the car because while I'm not too worried about fingerprints on the paint because the fingerprints wipe off, I continue to keep blowing the the debris, like the fiberglass debris from drilling the holes for the roll bar trims. I keep blowing that with compressed air, and of course it goes everywhere. And so it's all on the interior. It's on the carpet, it's on the seats. And I'm not going to worry about that until we do like a final cleanup. As long as we're not grinding it into the carpet, it'll easily vacuum out. But here you can see it's all over the carpet. It's up in the carpet over on the package tray. And I'm just not going to worry about it right now because it's not important. And when we get to the point that we start cleaning up the car, then I'll worry about it then. I want to thank you guys all for watching. If you're enjoying the content, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, and all that good stuff. And then we will see you next time. Have a great day.